I was never the kind of person who needed a spotlight. My name's Caleb. I'm 25 now. Well, I was on the day all this started, and I've always been the steady one in my family. You know the type. Never caused problems, always handled things on my own, kept my head down, got decent grades, stayed out of trouble. My younger brother Ethan? He was the opposite in every way, and my parents loved it. Somehow, chaos from Ethan was considered passion, while quiet resilience from me was just expected. No praise, no acknowledgement, just assumed. I guess some families cheer for the fireworks, and some forget about the street lamp that's been lighting their path the whole time. The day I turned 25 was supposed to be simple. I hadn't asked for much, just dinner at home. I'd been working full-time in another city, had to hustle my way into an entry-level job right after college, and money was tight. But I hadn't been back in months, and I missed them. Even with all the favoritism and double standards over the years, I still thought maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. I told Mom 2 weeks in advance that I was coming. She sounded distracted on the phone, but said, yeah, of course. We'll do something. I should have taken that as a red flag. I pulled into our old driveway late afternoon, beat from the 4-hour drive, and saw a bunch of unfamiliar cars parked outside. The porch lights were on, and laughter spilled from the windows. I thought maybe they'd invited some extended family or neighbors. Maybe it was a surprise party. Maybe for once, they really went out of their way for me. But the second I stepped inside, I knew something was off. The living room was filled with balloons, but not for me. A giant banner across the far wall read, "Congrats, Ethan." My brother was standing near the fireplace in a new designer jacket, beaming, while a cluster of people clapped and cheered. I froze in the doorway, luggage still in hand. "Oh hey," Mom said, brushing past me to carry a tray of drinks. "Glad you made it. Just put your things down. We're about to do speeches." Speeches? I finally spotted Dad across the room, raising a glass. "Tonight's about celebrating Ethan's next big chapter," he announced, grinning from ear to ear. He's finally taking the leap and starting that music production business we've all been hearing about. The room erupted in applause. I just stood there, heart hammering in my chest, my birthday completely forgotten by everyone. Not a single happy birthday, not even a glance. I waited for someone to say something, to acknowledge it, but all I got was Ethan slapping me on the back with that crooked little smirk he always wore when he knew he had won over me. "Sup, man? Guess this party can double as your birthday too, right?" He laughed, already walking away. I barely swallowed down the bitter lump in my throat. I didn't say anything right then, just quietly walked past the crowd, dodging old neighbors and distant cousins, and made my way to the kitchen. No cake, no candles, not even a card on the counter. There was a half-empty pizza box and some leftover appetizers. I picked at a piece of bread, pretending I wasn't shaking with disappointment. Later, when things calmed down and most of the guests had left, I finally confronted Dad. I didn't go in angry. I just asked, "Did you forget what today is?" He looked confused for a second, then blinked like he'd been hit with a memory he hadn't needed in years. "Oh, right. Your birthday. That was it." No apology, no shame, no attempt to make it right. Just 3 words. I stared at him, hoping he'd follow it up with something, anything. But instead he leaned back against the chair, crossed his arms, and said something that would change the way I saw him forever. "Don't make this about you, Caleb. Your brother's future matters more right now." I didn't respond. Not out loud. I just nodded, turned, and went upstairs to my old room. The one that still had dusty trophies from middle school shoved in the corner. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, staring at the floor, my jaw clenched so tight it hurt. I thought about all the times I'd been overlooked, all the birthdays they'd brushed aside, the college acceptance they barely acknowledged, the job I landed on my own without help or money, or even a "we're proud of you." That night, I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just decided something. Something I didn't fully understand in that moment, but felt deep in my bones. I was done trying to earn their approval. I was done being the quiet one, the dependable one, the footnote in Ethan's story. From that night on, I was going to write my own story, and I wasn't going to tell them a word about it. Not yet. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of Ethan blasting music in the living room downstairs. My head throbbed, not from alcohol. God knows I didn't feel like celebrating, but from exhaustion. I barely slept. I kept replaying Dad's words over and over in my head, like a broken record that got under my skin. Don't make this about you. Your brother's future matters more. It was like a slap that didn't sting at first, but started to swell the longer I thought about it. I sat up slowly and stared at the posters still taped to my bedroom walls. Most of them were faded now, old movie prints and basketball schedules I had cared about when I was 15. I used to dream in that room. Big dreams. College. Independence. My own business, someday. But in this house, the only person allowed to dream out loud was Ethan. Everyone else was expected to keep things running in the background while he found himself. I walked downstairs to find him on the couch with his shoes kicked up on Mom's coffee table. He was scrolling through his phone and half singing along to some rap track playing off the Bluetooth speaker. Yo, he said without looking up. Dad said we're doing lunch at that new place downtown. You coming? I blinked. You mean for my birthday? He smirked. Eyes still on the screen. Nah, man. He wants to celebrate locking in that investor I told you about. Dude's putting in like 10 grand up front. Investor? That word hit me sideways. I had pitched a business plan to my parents during my last year of college. A detailed, well-researched proposal for a digital design agency I wanted to build. I asked them if they could help me with 5 grand. Just a loan, I said, with a full repayment plan. They told me it was too risky, that I should focus on climbing the corporate ladder instead of chasing pipe dreams. And now, here they were, throwing 10,000 at Ethan for a music studio in the basement. Something in my chest tightened. I didn't say anything, just nodded and walked out to the porch for air. The months that followed weren't any better. After that weekend, I returned to my small rented apartment, got back to my grind, and buried myself in work. I didn't call them, didn't visit, but the silence on their end was louder. No one reached out, not even a text to check in, not until they needed something. It was around mid-April when Mom called out of the blue. Caleb, sweetheart, she said in that too sweet voice she used when something was coming. Do you think you could help Ethan with his taxes? He's having trouble figuring them out, and you're always so good with numbers. I should have hung up right then, but part of me still wanted to be seen as the good son, the useful one. So I agreed. Drove back up the next weekend, sat at Ethan's cluttered desk in what used to be Dad's office, now Ethan's creative space, and sorted through a shoebox of receipts and food delivery invoices while Ethan laid on the couch playing Call of Duty. He barely even said thanks when I was done. Later that day, Dad patted me on the back and said, "That's what brothers are for, right?" That same night, I overheard a conversation that burned itself into my memory. They thought I'd already left, but I just stepped outside to grab something from my car. The kitchen window was cracked, and I could hear them inside. Dad, Mom, and Ethan, laughing over something. Then Mom said, "You know, I honestly think Caleb's the kind of guy who'll just keep going no matter how we treat him. He doesn't need much." Dad chuckled. "That's what I've always said. He's solid. Ethan's the one we gotta keep encouraging. He's got the real talent, the vision." Ethan snorted. "Caleb's basically a calculator in pants." They all laughed. I remember standing there, one hand on the car door handle, the other clenching into a fist so tight I left little crescents in my palm. I didn't go back inside. I got in the car and drove straight back to my apartment in silence. That was the moment something shifted in me. Whatever thread had kept me tethered to them, some fragile hope that things might change, snapped clean. I stopped replying to calls. Blocked group chats. I didn't even go back for Christmas. My phone buzzed all day that morning with messages like, "We're doing dinner at 6 if you change your mind," and "Don't be dramatic, Caleb." I spent the day in my apartment alone, a frozen lasagna in the oven, watching snowfall blanket the streets outside. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel lonely. I felt free. They didn't take the hint. 2 months later, I got a letter in the mail, a wedding invitation. Ethan was getting married. Her name was Carly. I had met her once, briefly. Seemed sweet, a little quiet. I didn't really know her. But what floored me wasn't the fact that Ethan was getting married. It was that the invitation had no +1, and my name was printed wrong. Caleb Jensen. With AK. No note. No handwritten message. Just a printed invitation like I was some distant cousin they felt obligated to include. I almost threw it out. But I didn't. I kept it. Around that time, I had started a small freelance side hustle. Nothing big, just building websites for small businesses in my area. But I was good at it. Word spread. Projects started to come in steadily, and then faster. I was still working my full-time job, but I was now pulling in more money from my side hustle than my main gig. I poured myself into it, learned everything I could, stayed up late studying SEO, marketing funnels, automation. I taught myself design software, ran ad campaigns, and networked like crazy. And I never once told my family a word. Meanwhile, Ethan's music studio was bleeding money. I knew because he accidentally posted a story on Instagram showing his equipment listed for resale, captioned, "Sucks when dreams cost more than they earn." He later deleted it, but I saw it, and I didn't feel bad. Not long after, Mom called again. This time it was about the wedding. "Hey, sweetie," she started, fake casual. "So, about Ethan's wedding. We're thinking you might be willing to help out a little financially. It would mean a lot." I let the silence stretch before responding. "Why would I do that?" She was caught off guard. "Well, because you're doing pretty well, right? Ethan's been struggling a bit, and Carly's parents aren't contributing much. And you want me to foot the bill?" "Not all of it, honey. Just a few things. Maybe the venue deposit. Or the DJ. You know Ethan's always been more of a creative than a numbers person." I laughed. For the first time in months, I actually laughed. "You do realize today's the first time you've called me in over 5 months, right? Caleb, don't be petty." I almost lost it. "Petty? You forgot my birthday, funded Ethan's fake business, mocked me behind my back, and now you want money because you think I'm doing well? You think I owe him something?" "You're his brother," she said flatly. "Family helps each other." I ended the call. That's when I started planning. It wasn't revenge. Not yet. But it was preparation. I was done reacting. From now on, I'd be 10 steps ahead. I started documenting everything. Old text messages, voicemails, emails. I saved screenshots of Ethan's posts, of Mom's requests, of Dad's dismissive one-liners. I even kept the incorrect wedding invitation. Everything. Because something told me they weren't done yet. And I was right. 2 weeks before the wedding, I got another call. This time from Ethan. "Yo," he said. "So Mom told me you were being kind of a tightwad about the wedding. What's the deal?" I didn't say anything. "Look, man, I know we don't always see eye to eye, but I really thought you'd step up. Carly's stressed, we're short on funds, and you're just sitting there stacking cash." "You don't know anything about my life?" I said. He scoffed. "You're the one who ghosted the family. Maybe if you hadn't cut everyone off, you wouldn't feel so left out now." That word, left out. As if I hadn't been pushed aside since we were kids. As if this whole pattern wasn't a lifetime in the making. "I'll come to your wedding," I said, voice calm. "Wait, seriously?" He sounded genuinely surprised. "Yeah, I'll be there." And in that moment, I already knew what I was going to do. But I wasn't ready just yet. They still had more damage to cause, and one more betrayal left to deliver. And when it came, I wasn't surprised. But they were. I didn't sleep the night I told Ethan I'd come to his wedding. Something in the way he sounded so smug over the phone made my skin crawl. It wasn't relief, it was assumption. He assumed I'd fall back into place, that I'd show up and do what I always did. Play support. Be the older brother who nods along, cuts the check, and then fades into the background like stage lighting after the final bow. But not this time. Still, I wasn't ready for what came next. About a week before the wedding, Mom called again. I debated answering, but picked up, curious more than anything. Her voice was clipped and oddly formal, like she was reading off a script she didn't like. "There's been a change," she said. I waited. "Carly's parents are worried the guest list is getting too long, so we've had to make some adjustments." Adjustments. I knew what was coming before she said it. "You're still invited, of course, but we're going to have you sit at one of the outside tables. Just for dinner. It's a space thing. Outside." I repeated, deadpan. "It'll be nice. Umbrella shading, open air. It's June. And honestly, we figured you wouldn't mind. You're not very social." Not social. I closed my eyes and breathed through my nose. That's what I was to them now. An awkward placeholder to tuck away in the corner of a photo shoot? "Sure," I said. "That's fine." But it wasn't fine. It wasn't even close. Because 3 hours later, my old college roommate messaged me out of the blue. "Yo, weird question. Are you going to Ethan Jensen's wedding next weekend?" I blinked at my phone. How does he even know about that? He followed up with a screenshot. Carly had posted the full wedding party lineup on Facebook. Every groomsman, bridesmaid, and even distant cousins were tagged in glowing captions. My name wasn't there. But you know whose name was? Brad. My old roommate. Who hadn't spoken to Ethan in years. Wait, I typed. You're a groomsman? He replied, I guess. Carly called me and said Ethan wanted old friends involved. I thought you were best man or something. I stared at the message for a long time. I wasn't just being sidelined. I was being replaced. I didn't respond to Brad. I didn't say a word to my family either. I just stared at my bedroom ceiling that night with one overwhelming realization. I wasn't their son. I was their tool. And like every tool they owned, they only pulled me out when they needed something fixed. That night broke something in me. It wasn't dramatic. There were no tears, no slammed doors, just a quiet unraveling. Like someone finally clipped the last frayed thread holding me to the version of myself that kept trying to be enough for them. The next morning, I called out of work for the first time in over a year. I stayed home, curled up on my apartment couch, not moving for hours. I skipped meals, let dishes pile up. Emails went unanswered. I ignored calls. Deadlines slipped. The work that once fueled me started feeling meaningless. The business I'd built on the side, I stopped opening client messages. I couldn't focus, couldn't create. I'd hit rock bottom, and no one noticed. Not my parents, not Ethan, not even my colleagues. Everyone had their own things going on. And the truth was, I had trained people to think I was invincible, quietly capable, always handling it. So when I started falling apart, nobody came looking. Days turned into a week, then two. I was behind on rent. My fridge was empty. I lived off crackers and whatever I could find in the pantry. My landlord left a note under my door about missed payments. I couldn't even bring myself to care. I felt like a ghost. Until one night, around 2 a.m., I got a text from someone unexpected. It was Carly. The message was simple. Hey, can we talk? I stared at it for a long time before responding. Something about her tone didn't match the carefully curated version of herself I'd seen online. I finally replied, sure. What? She called me right away. Her voice was low, anxious. I know this is out of the blue, she said. And I'm sorry, but I need to tell you something. She hesitated, then continued. Ethan told me you offered to pay for part of the wedding, that you were helping with the venue, the DJ, and even some of the catering. I sat up. What? That's not true. Absolutely not. There was a pause, then a sigh. I knew something was off. He said you insisted on keeping it anonymous because you didn't want attention, but it didn't add up. Of course he did, using my silence as a blank check, playing the generous brother card to look good in front of his fiancée. Carly continued, her voice cracking slightly. I'm sorry, Caleb. I really thought he was just scattered, but now I'm starting to think I don't know him at all. I didn't know what to say. Part of me felt vindicated. The other part just felt sad, for her and for myself. Why are you telling me this? I asked quietly. Because you deserve to know. And because if I were you, I'd want someone to say it out loud. We talked for over an hour that night. She told me things I hadn't known, how Ethan had lied about his business, how he borrowed money from her parents promising to invest it, and then used it to buy studio lights and speakers he never unboxed, how he mocked people who worked boring desk jobs and yet couldn't pay his credit card bills on time. He said you were bitter, she admitted, that you'd always been jealous of him, that you tried to compete but couldn't keep up. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was familiar. Of course that was the story he told. That was always the story. Caleb the cold, calculating killjoy. Ethan the free spirit, unfairly burdened by a boring older brother who didn't get him. Thank you for telling me, I said finally. She paused. Are you still coming to the wedding? I haven't decided yet. Another pause. If you do come, please don't bring a gift. That made me chuckle. You're the first person to say that to me. We ended the call on good terms. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something crack through the fog I'd been living in. Not hope. Not yet. But direction. That night, I made a list. Not a revenge plan. Not yet. Just a list of everything I needed to do to get myself back. Reopen client messages. Clear backlog. Get rent current. Start saving again. Register the business officially. Build a portfolio website. Apply for that accelerator program I bookmarked. It didn't all happen at once. In fact, it was brutal at first. My motivation came in fits and starts. Some days I still sat in silence for hours. But every day, I crossed off at least one thing. I started setting timers. 30 minutes of focus, then rest. Rinse, repeat. Clients started coming back. I got a referral from someone I hadn't spoken to in a year. I launched my site, built case studies, took better photos of my work, branded my service properly, designed a new logo. Started an Instagram for my agency. Within a month, I had 3 retainer clients paying more than I'd ever made in a single month before. I finally paid off what I owed in rent. Even replaced my broken laptop with a brand new machine. And all of it, I did without a word to my family. They had no idea who I was becoming. But soon, they would. Because I had one last thing left on that list. And it involved showing up to the wedding, not as the forgotten brother, but as someone they never saw coming. And the best part? They still hadn't delivered the final betrayal yet. But it was coming. And when it did, I was going to be ready. I didn't RSVP to the wedding. That was deliberate. Not out of spite. Not out of laziness. I wanted them to wonder. To guess. To talk about it. I wanted them to feel my absence before I ever stepped into the room. And trust me, they did. I heard through an old neighbor, Mrs. Gentry, that my mom was mildly panicking the week before the wedding. I'd run into Mrs. Gentry at the post office and, against my better judgment, made small talk. Turns out, she'd been invited to the wedding and assumed I had too. They kept asking if you were coming, she said, fanning herself with a coupon flyer. Your mother told the florist you were too busy with tech stuff to help, but she looked like she'd eaten sour lemons. I smiled politely, but inside, I was savoring every word. The truth was, I had been very busy. In the last month, I'd quietly built something that no one in my family knew existed. My freelance design hustle had become a legitimate company, Jensen Creative Company, with an actual LLC, bank account, brand identity, and more clients than I could handle on my own. I'd even brought on 2 subcontractors, one for copywriting, one for back-end dev work. We were small, lean, and fast. The kind of operation Ethan pretended to run. Only mine actually paid people. And I didn't just stop there. I took some of that growing cash flow and invested it aggressively. Courses, SEO tools, sponsored posts. My business Instagram started gaining traction. So did my LinkedIn. A few viral tweets from industry folks brought traffic to my new website, and I started getting cold inquiries from actual startups. I was riding the wave, but I hadn't forgotten. Not even close. While they were preparing for a wedding, I was preparing for a performance. The revenge wasn't going to be petty. I wasn't going to throw a fit at the ceremony or make a dramatic speech. That wasn't my style. No, this was going to be slower, sharper, more surgical. So I started gathering pieces. First, I called Carly again, carefully. I didn't want to push, but I had questions. And she, surprisingly, had answers. Has Ethan told you how he's been funding the last few weeks? I asked her, casual as I could. Carly hesitated. He said he got a loan from a friend. I almost laughed. You believe that? No, she admitted quietly. But at this point, I'm trying not to question every lie. She sounded tired, defeated. It made my chest ache for her a bit. She didn't deserve this. And something told me she knew it was all wrong but felt too deep in to pull back. That's when I asked, carefully, did he mention my name in relation to the finances? Another pause. He said you were one of the donors for the venue, that you wanted to be anonymous, but he'd make sure to honor you in his speech. I rolled my eyes so hard I gave myself a headache. He's lying again, I said. I haven't given a dime. There was silence on her end. Then, I figured. That was the first seed. Over the next week, I started doing what I do best, research. Quiet, invisible, focused research. I pulled up Ethan's old studio website. It was barely functional. No portfolio. No booking system. Just a few photos he'd clearly taken in one sitting to fake multiple sessions. I ran the domain through WHOS and found it was about to expire. He hadn't even set it to auto-renew. Amateur. Next, I checked his public LinkedIn. It said he was the CEO of EJ Productions, LLC. But a quick search of the business registry? No such company existed. Not in our state. Not in the neighboring ones either. The guy hadn't even registered a DBA. Then came the client testimonials, clearly fake. I reverse image searched the profile photos from his site. Stock photos. Every single one. He was building his dream on cardboard. I started collecting it all. Screenshots, PDFs, archive links. I even saved his Instagram stories in case he deleted them later. Posts where he bragged about clients he never had. Comments where he implied I was helping bankroll the dream. Everything was going in a folder titled For Later. But I wasn't just planning to expose him. I wanted to overshadow him. So I pulled the ultimate move. I bought a booth. See, Ethan had been bragging for months about how his wedding was going to launch his brand. He was planning a little promo table at the reception for EJ Productions. Business cards, QR codes, a slideshow looping on a tablet. I knew because Carly had mentioned it once with a sigh. He thinks people will book him just because they like the cake. So I made a call. A few years back, one of my old design professors had taken a director role at a local entrepreneurship expo. It happened every July. Tons of investors, business owners, startups, press. I'd never had time to go. This year, I made time. I told him I was ready to show off my business. He remembered me, liked me, and best of all, one of the premium booths had just become available due to a last-minute cancellation. It was expensive, but I could afford it now. And here's the best part. The expo was the day before Ethan's wedding. Same city, same people. In fact, many of the same family friends who were attending the wedding would also be attending the expo. Dad had already bragged on Facebook about how Ethan's network was growing because of events like it. I had a plan. I was going to show up at the expo with a sleek, minimalistic booth, matte black backdrop, crisp typography, a looping video of my portfolio, clean print materials, and a team of 2 helping me answer questions. All branded under Jensen Creative Company. No loud logos. No fake testimonials. No borrowed money. Just results. I even designed a brochure specifically for the event, featuring real client results, case studies, and a page titled, Our Founder's Journey. It included a short blurb. After years of building in silence, Caleb Jensen turned his frustration with corporate creative bottlenecks into a thriving, agile brand studio focused on elegant design and real-world results. That was the only time I mentioned myself. Let them connect the dots. Let them realize I wasn't the brother helping with invoices anymore. I was the one signing them. With every day closer to the wedding, I got stronger. I was sleeping again, eating right, working out. My confidence was sharper, my posture straighter. I walked into rooms like I belonged there, because now I did. A week before the wedding, I finally unblocked my parents. Just long enough to let their texts come in. Mom, looking forward to seeing you at the ceremony, Caleb. Let us know if you're bringing anyone. Dad, you'll love the venue. Ethan's really pulling something impressive together. Might even be some networking for you too. I almost laughed. Ethan, bring your business cards. People are going to be asking what you're up to. They had no idea. Carly texted me the day before the wedding. Just one message. If you're coming tomorrow, wear something sharp. I have a feeling people are going to be looking at you differently. I replied, they already are. Then I set my alarm for 6 a.m., ironed my suit, packed my expo kit, and got ready to become someone they'd never overlook again. But what none of us knew, not yet, was that the wedding wasn't going to go as planned. Because Ethan was about to make one last, desperate move, and it would change everything. The morning of the wedding, I woke up before my alarm. Not from nerves, but from focus. That sharp, electric calm you feel when everything is in place. When the work is done, the pieces are lined up, and all that's left is to step into the moment you've built for. I put on the same tailored navy suit I'd worn at the expo the day before, still crisp from yesterday's success. The booth had gone better than I'd imagined. I'd printed 200 brochures, all gone within hours. For different business owners had asked for meetings. One wanted to book a full rebrand. But none of that compared to what happened around noon. I was walking back from the lunch stand when I heard my name. Caleb. I turned and found myself face-to-face with 2 familiar people, Mr. and Mrs. Roth, old family friends of my parents. I hadn't seen them in years. Your booth was fantastic, Mrs. Roth said, smiling. We just spoke to your partner. What you've built, it's remarkable. I blinked. Partner. She gestured behind me. I turned, and there stood Carly, wearing jeans, a plain t-shirt, no makeup. Just her. Calm. Collected. Real. We locked eyes. And I knew. She wasn't marrying Ethan. I excused myself and walked over. She spoke first. He lied again. About the venue. About the funding. About everything. My heart thudded. Did something happen? She nodded. Last night, he asked me to sign something. A joint account agreement. Said it was just to help with day of logistics. But I read the fine print. I didn't speak. Just listened. He was trying to get access to my inheritance. The money my grandmother left me. Told me it'd go right back into our future. She gave a dry, bitter laugh. I told him no. He blew up. Said I was sabotaging him. That I was just like you. That made me pause. Like me? He said you were jealous, bitter, trying to ruin him ever since high school. I asked what he meant, and he just spiraled. Called you a parasite. Said your tech startup was a joke. I raised an eyebrow. Did you tell him you were at my booth? She smiled, faintly. Didn't get the chance. I packed my bags, left the ring on the counter, and walked out before dawn. There was a long silence. And then I said, "Do you still want to go to the wedding?" She laughed. "Only if I get to sit next to you." We showed up at 4 p.m. sharp. The venue was an upscale estate-style property with a massive fountain out front, rented white folding chairs arranged in neat rows, and a live band playing something vaguely romantic. Guests were milling around, dressed in linen suits and pastel gowns, sipping champagne and taking pictures under string lights. It was picture perfect. Except there was no bride. I spotted Mom and Dad first. Mom was in a sky blue dress, pacing furiously near the bridal tent. Dad stood nearby, whispering into his phone like it was a bomb detonator. And then Ethan emerged. Hair slicked back, face red, tucks wrinkled from sweat. He froze when he saw us. His eyes landed on Carly and went wide with disbelief. "You have got to be kidding me," he muttered, storming over. "You brought him?" Carly stayed composed. "No, Ethan. I came with him." "You're welcome." He turned to me, venom in his voice. "What the hell did you say to her?" I didn't blink. "Nothing you didn't already prove on your own." He tried to laugh it off, looking around to see who was watching. "You think this changes anything? Everyone's still here for me. They don't care about your little app or whatever it is you're doing." I shrugged. "That's fine. I didn't come here for attention." Carly crossed her arms. "Then he won't mind if I make an announcement, right?" Before Ethan could react, she stepped onto the small raised stage near the fountain, the one where they were supposed to exchange vows. She picked up the mic and tapped it. The room went still. "Hi, everyone. I just wanted to let you all know that there won't be a wedding today. And that's okay. Plans change. People change. And sometimes, you find out things about someone that make it very clear they're not your future." A stunned silence fell over the guests. Carly continued, voice steady. "I wish Ethan the best. I really do. But I won't be marrying someone who lies to me, manipulates my finances, or disrespects his family. And I especially won't marry someone who spent years tearing down his own brother just to feel taller." All heads turned to me. I stood still, calm. Let them look. And then Carly said the final line. "Oh, and by the way, if any of you are looking for an actual business to support, check out Jensen Creative Company. They had a booth at the Startup Expo yesterday. They're the real deal." Polite applause. Not overwhelming, but real. Mrs. Roth clapped. So did a few others. Ethan's face was a portrait of confusion, rage, and disbelief. "You set this up," he hissed, turning back to me. "You poisoned her. You." "No," I said, finally cutting him off. "You did this to yourself. I just stopped cleaning up your messes." And then I walked away. I left before the guests started filtering out. Before the aunts came over to whisper condolences. Before my parents could spin it into another Caleb-caused disaster. I didn't need to see their reaction. I already knew. Later that night, I got a text from Dad. "You've made your point." I didn't reply. Mom followed with, "You embarrassed the whole family." To that, I wrote back one line. "No, I revealed the truth. You just didn't like the audience." Ethan didn't message at all. But 3 days later, I got a PayPal request from him for $3,000 labeled Venue Refund Share. I declined it and blocked him. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. Carly moved out of her parents' place and took a job in marketing at a startup I was designing for. She and I stayed friends, not romantic, but solid, real. My business doubled its revenue by the end of the summer. I bought my first office space that fall. As for my parents, they tried to call a few more times. I let them sit in voicemail. Because here's the truth. When you've spent your whole life being the quiet, reliable one, the moment you stop playing their game, it's louder than any outburst. And sometimes, silence is the most deafening revenge of all, especially when it's paired with success. They used to say Ethan had the vision, but in the end, I was the one they never saw coming. And I never